Selamat siang, good morning, and welcome back to another Bali COVID-19 update. This is February 2nd, 2022, and my name is Bruce. And let's start off with the weather. And the wind speed is 4.2 kilometers per hour. Temperature is 30.8 degrees Celsius, and the humidity is 74%. And it is a sunny day after a big storm last night. And lots of news. If you want to see what the latest things, which I don't really have time to deal with today, you can jump down there, just click on the timestamp, and you'll get there quickly. Okay, and the lead story today, of course, is the Bali opening. Yes, Bali is opening again. It opened in October, right? And nobody came. And so it's opening again, so I'm going to talk about that. And one of the things that was not in the press report, and I went back and I watched the video of Luhut talking, and he said that there would be two options for quarantine. The two options are they can undergo bubble quarantine at 5 hotels with a total of 447 rooms, or 6 live-aboard ships that have received the CHSE certification from the Ministry of Tourism. So that is right now. This is Wednesday morning, and well, things are changing rapidly. So the Bali opening and the quarantine, the second big one, quarantine dropping down to 5 days, not official yet. There's no circular been issued, and there should be one, well, in a day or 2 or 3, not really clear. Are planes scheduled to land? Yes, there are, and that will be in the update at the end of this video. Will the planes land? I don't know. Nobody knows. If you say that you know, well, you're just guessing. We'll find out. One is scheduled to arrive tomorrow, right? Everything is fluid, as is usual. Let's get started with the numbers. 7-day average in Bali, 336 cases, and deaths, 1.3. So those are the 7-day averages. Nationally, numbers yesterday, 16,021 new cases, deaths 28, rising up a little. Tested 235,905 nationally, 6.79% positivity. And the 7-day average for positivity nationwide, 4.63%. So going up there. And Bali testing yesterday, Bali tested, over the last 7 days, Bali tested 50,783 people. And the 7-day positivity average is 3.41%. So we are in a surge, yes, and we are opening. Vaccinations, 3,901,935 in Bali, right, 86.4%. First dose, 3,467,275. Second dose, 76.7%. And boosters are listed now, 254,809, 5.6% of the population here in Bali has had a booster, and additional doses yesterday, 1,124. And what about the Bali numbers? Bali, 715 new cases yesterday, so double from the day before. Deaths, 3, and active cases now up to 2,538. We're in the surge. Numbers are going up. The government said, don't panic. Well, it depends on who you talk to. Some people say beware, and some people say, oh, don't worry about it. And those segments are coming up. And let's get on to the two main stories for today. The main story today, you've probably heard about this already by now, is Bali to open for all international travelers, Luhut. Luhut said at a news conference on Monday night that Bali would be gradually opening to all international travelers starting on February 4th. Now, this is his announcement. This is not official yet. There is no SE, no government circular. That has to come before it's official. And, well, hopefully that will be done by the 4th. As you know, if you've watched this channel before, the government often makes announcements and then it becomes official sometime afterwards, sometimes long afterwards. And the minister said that the quarantine would be reduced from 7 to 5 days, and more on that in just a minute following up. And this comes despite the fact that we have increasing numbers of new cases due to the Omicron variant. But for whatever reason, the government has decided to go ahead and push for the opening. Now, you know from a video the other day, link up here, that Singapore Airlines said that they were going to start flights into Bali on the 16th. And so maybe this is connected. I questioned when I made the report on the Singapore announcement whether or not they knew something from the government. Maybe they did. I don't know. At this point, that's not really important. What is important is that the government is going to start bringing in international travelers into Bali. Now, you can say they've said this since October. It's been open, but now we have an airline that seems to be committed to coming in according to their official announcements. And price from what I saw the other day was usual, around $300. And last week, as you know too, there was the travel bubble opened up between Singapore and Indonesia, and Batam and Bintan. The government seems at this point to have decided it is time to open up. According to a spokesperson from the Bali Government Tourism Office, Indonesia, Bali has been receiving some foreign travelers coming in over the last few months, but there are no official numbers available. And well, they've been coming in through Jakarta. And well, we talked about that many times here. This is good news. The details, as usual, there are no details. The details to be forthcoming. Some questions? What about visas? Will there be visas on arrival? Will you have to use an agent? How is that going to work? How long will the visas be for? That hasn't been discussed yet. Questions about the quarantine. And well, there was a list of hotels that were in Bali that were going to be used for quarantine hotels. That may be updated. Been around for a long time, so I don't know. We'll have to wait and see on that. If I can find it, I have it somewhere. I will put a link down below to that. Questions about what happens if you show up and you test positive. And there's questions about how many people are actually going to come with the quarantine. Now, a lot of people have said even here, if I could get into Bali directly, I would not mind doing the quarantine, or maybe not mind, but I would do the quarantine. Now the quarantine is going to be reduced to 5 days. How many people are going to be willing to fly into Bali, do a quarantine here, and then be free to travel around? And will they be free to travel around the whole country, or will they be restricted to Bali? Those are some questions that brought up based on what was said before about coming in on a tourism visa into Bali when, well, nobody came. We'll have to wait for the details. As usual, it is be patient, sabar, and wait and see what the details are. But this is good news. It seems that the government is really committed to bringing in international travelers now. And well, that's going to be great news for an island full of unemployed and underemployed people. Personally, it will be good for all of my children, my grandchildren, my son-in-laws, who are all dependent on one way or another on tourism. Because the more tourists here, the more businesses open, the more their businesses will prosper and need new people to work. So I'm pumped. I'm pumped about this. And there are going to be naysayers, but I'm pumped. And let's get on and see about the quarantine being reduced. Okay, the quarantine period reduced for international travelers to 5 days. So we're back to 5 days again. And this came from Pak Luhut in his Monday press conference, and he said there needs to be a change in strategy due to the higher number of cases from local transmissions. To that end, the government changes the quarantine period from 7 days to 5 days on condition that Indonesian and foreign nationals entering Indonesia should be fully vaccinated. He noted that Indonesian nationals that have received their first dose of COVID-19 must undergo a 7-day quarantine, a 7-day quarantine upon arrival from abroad. And he said this is because the variant of COVID-19 that infected most international travelers is Omicron, and various research shows that incubation period is about 3 days, and so the 5-day quarantine should be enough, according to Pak Luhut. And additionally, dropping the quarantine from 7 to 5 days will free up some resources for the government to reallocate, and so he said the buildings earlier used to quarantine international travelers will be turned into isolation centers, along with the expected high demand from confirmed positive patients without symptoms and with mild symptoms. And so there's going to be some moving around. There's a lot of details still to iron out, but this is Indonesia. That's how it works. The drop down from 7 to 5 days is good news. There's going to be a lot of people saying, well, I'm not coming until it's 3 days or 1 day or no days. Well, that's your choice. And PPKM, what about PPKM? As expected, it has been extended for another week to 7th of February, according according to Luhut. Luhut was very busy yesterday. Luhut reminded people that the positive number of cases is still 1/5 of the peak of the Delta variant in July 2021. Remember when we had 56,000? He said that the number of hospitalizations in Indonesia is still very safe, and it's 1/10 of the peak of Delta. And he said, we estimate that this is a mitigation step in the event of the Omicron malignancy. The Ministry of Health has prepared adequate health facilities, much better than last year. So far, the highest number of cases in the Jakarta metropolitan area, followed by West Java and Banten. The head of the COVID-19 task force, the executive board of the Indonesian Doctors Association, IDI, said that the third wave spike has occurred already, and we've talked about that in the last video. And he said the transmission rate or positivity rate and hospital occupancy are increasing. The daily positivity rate for PCR and TCM examinations is up to 23.93%. So we know we've got a surge. The good news is that the numbers today, similar to the numbers from yesterday. And so usually talking about numbers and looking at the 7-day average, but with the Omicron now, it's important to watch the day-to-day movement as well. How much is it spiking? And well, it did not spike yesterday. So that's good news. It's still up at 10,000, but it didn't jump suddenly up to 15 or 20,000. And the same thing in Bali. Numbers are still in the low 300s, and they haven't made a significant movement yet. And the good doctor said, for those who think we have entered the third wave, yes, we have successfully, in quotes, entered it. Cases are increasing every day. I like the successfully. Okay, it's here, but the government is moving ahead with things, as I mentioned in the previous ones, with getting ready to bring people into Bali and the travel bubble with Singapore. So this is all positive right now. And what's happening with Omicron here? Omicron local transmission increasing Jakarta hospital occupancy. Okay, not a good sign. Jakarta's deputy governor said as of Friday, bed occupancy rate had increased 14%. The BOR is 54%, rose from 45 to 54%, 45 to 54. That's 9%. The deputy governor added that the occupancy in the ICU also rose to 18%. He calls on the public to be vigilant and not underestimate Omicron variant. Okay, and wait until we get to the next segment and see what's said here in Bali. Remember, he says, don't underestimate the Omicron variant. He said, I'm telling you, please pay attention to the significant increase of local transmission cases. It used to be a huge gap between the imported and local transmission cases. Now we're infecting each other, not only those who return from abroad. And the chief of the city health agency appeals to the public to remain vigilant and disciplined in implementing the COVID-19 health protocols. She reminded the public to get vaccinated. She said the pandemic is not over yet, even though Omicron is relatively milder than the Delta variant. Okay, and we've heard this many, many times. She said that whole genome sequencing, WGS tests show 80 to 90% of samples are Omicron. Okay, these are the recent samples. And so, Omicron is becoming the dominant variant in Indonesia, if it isn't already. And what about Omicron in Bali? Okay, now this is a little different. Head of Bali Health Office, beware of Omicron, but don't worry too much. According to the head of the Bali Provincial Health Office, Made Renton, talked about him many times, the symptoms are not specific but are allegedly milder, so people should be vigilant but don't worry too much. He also said that the hospitalization rate was lower than the Delta variant. So far, so good for us. And, well, not quite in line with what's happening in Jakarta. He said Omicron triggers mild symptoms such as a common cold, cough, and fever even without symptoms, so the level of hospitalization is lower than the Delta variant. And regarding medical therapy, he said the drug used for the previous variant is still effective for Omicron. The drug is the vaccine, and the vaccine itself is known to play a large role in preventing the severity of symptoms and death, even though its effectiveness is known to be reduced. For this reason, Made urges the public to take precautions by implementing health protocol discipline and immediately vaccinating when it's their turn. He said, if you feel flu, cough, or have a fever, immediately do a test to make sure you are infected or not. If confirmed, do treatment isolation. Now, how many people do I know that are sick? A lot. How many people I know that are sick and have been tested? zero. People are just not doing it. They don't want to take the chance on being isolated. And so they're sick. They say, hey, this is the season. People always get sick February around Chinese New Year. True. It is true. And so they're saying, now, if you go to the hospital, they're just going to make it up and say you've got COVID. Of course, that's not true, but that is a common belief among people, unfortunately. What about vaccines? Government to prioritize AstraZeneca as booster vaccine in Q1 2022. For the first quarter of 2022, booster vaccine allocation will prioritize AstraZeneca vaccine considering its ample supply, according to Ibu Siti Nadia Tarmizi, who we've talked about many times. And the AstraZeneca vaccine can be administered with an interval of 8 weeks after full dose primary vaccination. People who are going to receive the booster vaccine will have to show their identity card or their PL app, be 18 years old or above, already have full dose primary vaccine at least 6 months before the booster vaccination. People who received the Sinovac as primary vaccine would get half a dose of AZ or half a dose of Pfizer as a booster vaccine, while those who received AstraZeneca as the primary vaccine would get half a dose of Moderna, half a dose of Pfizer, or a full dose of AstraZeneca as the booster. A study found that a third booster dose of COVID-19 vaccine made by AstraZeneca, Pfizer, or Johnson & Johnson increases antibody levels significantly in those who have previously received 2 doses of the Sinovac shot. And this story on some changes going on in Indonesia in terms of bringing electric vehicles into the country. Erick Thohir wants Gojek, Grab to use electric motorcycle Gesits. So according to the state-owned enterprise, or SOE Minister, Erick Thohir, he has continued to collaborate with Gesits, with Gojek and Grab, according to some remarks he made the other day at University of Lampung. He underlined that Indonesia needs to not just produce nickel and turn it into batteries, but they should be producing vehicles as well. As reported on its official website, Gesitsmotors.com, Gesit is an electric motorcycle claimed to be the work of the nation's children. And my son and son-in-law work for Gesits. And it's a collaborative project initiated by the Ministry of Research and Technology in tandem with Sepuluh November Institute of Technology, and the motorbike is manufactured in a factory located in Ciliungsi, Bogor, West Java. The scooter, which is very cute and looks pretty sturdy, uses a 5 kilowatt electric motor, and on a single charge it can go for about 50 kilometers. On one battery, 100 kilometers if you use a dual battery. I think the idea is great to get away from using fossil fuels and get into electric vehicles, and I would like to have one. But 50 kilometers is not good for me. I can see using them in cities, Jakarta, Denpasar, but for me, if I want to travel from here down to the south, well, that's over 100 kilometers, and so I'd have to have 2 batteries. Until there are charging stations everywhere, I think there's going to be a problem with getting people to buy these. And they're not cheap, but new technology, and it's good to see that Indonesia is looking at developing and using new technology in order to create jobs and some futures for our young people. And what about Thailand? Test and go visitors must make 2 hotel bookings. Okay, now when I first read this, I thought 2 hotel bookings, they have to book in 2 hotels? No, they have to book in 1 hotel for 2 days. So visitors who arrive by air under the Test and Go program, which resumed on Tuesday, will have to book hotel accommodations twice for 2 mandatory COVID-19 tests and comply with disease controls or face legal actions, a government spokesperson said on Monday. The first test will be on arrival and the second test will be on the 5th day of the visit. Visitors will have to show evidence of bookings for 2 nights at one of the designated hotels contracted to provide testing services with partner hospitals. According to a spokesperson, if they test negative the first time, then they can travel freely until the second test. The revised Test and Go will be available to visitors from all countries, he said. And what about insurance? What happens if you are infected? He said if your COVID-19 insurance coverage is limited, visitors will have to meet the cost by themselves for their uninsured treatment at hospitals. So if you're going to Thailand, make sure you've got insurance. And the same here in Bali. Anywhere where you go now, you got to make sure you've got travel insurance that covers COVID. And from January 1st to January 30th, 185,037 visitors arrived in Thailand by air. Russians were the largest group, 19,450, followed by 11,469 Germans, 10,458 Americans, 10,091 Britons. And Dr. Tawi Silip said that 22 test-and-go visitors violated disease controls and most could not be located when their COVID-19 test turned out to be positive. He said, please stay overnight at your hotel and wait for your test results. If there are many tests around the same time, it could take 3 to 6 hours for the results to come back. And violators are liable for a fine up to 20,000 baht, depending on the frequency of the defiance. And kind of as a justification, he said penalties are harsher in other countries. Countries always like to do this. It's tougher over there, not so bad over here. He said other countries impose massive fines and even imprisonment. And he uses an example, Canada. He said in Canada, visitors who fail to do mandatory tests could be fined as much as 750,000 Canadian dollars. And he said in Hong Kong, there are provisions for fines and jail terms up to 6 months for disease control violations. And well, Singapore's got some tough rules too. And what's happening up here in Buleleng? Isoter company C prepared. Kominfosanti Buleleng supports free Wi-Fi. That's a mouthful. In order to anticipate the surge of COVID-19 cases here and because of the development and increasing number of cases around Bali, the COVID-19 task force from Buleleng is moving quickly by preparing Company C dormitory at Arsani. And if you've ever been over there, you know there's a military base over there. And this will be an alternative and will have free Wi-Fi as a form of government attention to OTG friends, people who are undergoing isolation, central isolation, Isoter. This was conveyed by the coordinator for the data and information of the Buleleng COVID-19 Task Force, Ketut Swarmawan, through a daily release in his office on Sunday. And in addition of the isolation place, which was in the Undixa dormitory building, there is now this place in Company C dormitory in Arsani, due to the increasing number of cases and the need to isolate people who are confirmed for COVID-19 with mild symptoms. Because Omicron is known to spread faster, the government here is moving quickly to be ready in case there is a rapid increase in the number of cases. And Ketut further explained that the role of the Kominfosanti service, which is also part of the Buleleng COVID-19 task force, is to facilitate in terms of socialization or informing how dangerous COVID-19 is, how to suppress the COVID-19, and support government programs regarding vaccination, because vaccination is very important in order to keep the virus from spreading. And he said, finally, we are trying to maximize the provision of free Wi-Fi so that they remain happy, people being in isolation, happy while undergoing isolation by enjoying free Wi-Fi services from the Ministry of Communication and Information Technology of Buleleng Regency. Ampa Ketut invites all levels of society to continue applying health protocols with his 6M, wearing the correct standard mask, washing hands with soap, keeping distance, reducing traveling, increasing immunity, and obeying government regulations, plus the 3 Ts. Testing, tracing, and treatment. And he concluded that it requires a high level of awareness from the public to apply the PL application, because without the participation of the community and business actors, this application will not be useful. And it provides an easy way to find out conditions and reduce the rate of spread of COVID-19. And more on Buleleng. Today, 29 OTGs, OTGs are people without symptoms, are registered to undergo isolation. So seeing the massive number of daily COVID-19 confirmation cases, the Buleleng COVID-19 Task Force has moved quickly to use Building C at Undixa, the university, as a central isolation place for OTG, people without symptoms. According to the coordinator for data and information of the Buleleng COVID-19 task force, Pak Ketut, I've talked about him many times and I have a really hard time pronouncing his last name quickly. This Isoter place has been filled from last Thursday afternoon until now with as many as 29 people and immediately carried out by strict security by the Buleleng Regency PP Satpol along with Buleleng Regency BPDD as well as TNE, the military, and Pohlmann. So you've got a lot of people guarding them. In addition to carrying out strict guarding, the Buleleng COVID-19 task force also picks up OTG, who will undergo isolation by involving the TNE Pohlmann in the villages. He said, I appeal to the public as cases increase, be more disciplined in implementing COVID-19 processes wherever they are. And so that is the news on Buleleng at this point. What about Omicron cases in Bali? The increase in COVID-19 cases in Jembrana is dominated by asymptomatic cases. Jembrana's regent, Nengatamba, said that there was a significant increase in confirmed cases in Jembrana in the last month, but not all experience symptoms. Most are asymptomatic. He said there are a few positive patients who are treated in the hospitals, but they also have congenital diseases. He appealed to the public not to panic, but not to underestimate COVID-19. So we've got people saying don't underestimate it, people saying don't worry about it. What are we going to do? Take everything with a grain of salt, I think. He said the most important thing is that the public implement strict and disciplined health protocols so that they're not easily infected by the virus. And you've heard about Buleleng and them getting ready for special isolation places. The task force in Jembrana has prepared centralized isolation for residents who are confirmed positive for COVID-19 but don't have symptoms. And another thing they're going to be doing is spraying disinfectants, distributing masks, and inspecting health protocols in public places. And what about digital nomads in Bali? Yes, there has not been a lot of talk about digital nomads lately, and here is one. Digital nomads need to be worked with a special visa of 3 months to 1 year. Okay, the translation there is not very good. Bali is one of these centers worldwide for digital nomads, as we know, and guess where a lot of them stay? Yeah, in Canggu. And so if you look at any of the videos that are coming out by Bobo or the Monkeys or any of the other YouTubers that are traveling around the tourist area taking videos, you see Kuta is pretty dead. But in Canggu, it's the opposite. The streets around Canggu are still busy with foreign tourists. So these tourists that are there in Canggu, tourists or whatever they want to call themselves, digital nomads, momentary expats, according to this article, they're actually doing remote work too. Their activities here, it says, start from morning around 9 and breakfast until the evening. Well, I don't know how they know that. According to Conversation Radar Bali, with the cafe owner, foreigners come from Netherlands, Ukraine, the US, Russia, Australia. Some have lived in Bali for several years, some only for a few months. The chairman of the PHRI, Badung Igusti Agung Rai Sriwijaya, who I've talked about many times, said Canggu is the new favorite place for Bali that's comfortable for tourists because they want to find a new atmosphere outside of Kuta and Legian. And in Canggu, there are many places for co-working spaces, and these digital nomads or remote workers like Canggu because of the location and the prices are affordable. Well, the prices some of them pay are outrageous, but I guess for the kind of places they're living in, if you can afford to pay for them, I guess, then you can afford to pay for them. Pak Agugurai said that the Badung Regency government should see Canggu as a source of income. There are many restaurants, shops, and supermarkets, and foreigners who make Bali a place to work, even though the companies abroad give added value. And from there, according to him, he can give a contribution to Bali. Now, he said taxes can't be done because the company is not in Bali, but if they contribute, they can contribute to take care of conservation in Bali. So he said that there's an estimate that there's 7,000 foreigners still in Bali. I think the number is way higher than that. And he thinks digital nomad tourism has great potential for Bali, especially for Canggu and Ubud. And so he said special rules are needed so that there could be 3 months, 6 months, even 1 year visas for those that want to stay in Bali for a long time. He said if conditions are normal, this should be a concern to the government because digital nomads has become a trend and has an economic impact on Balinese people. And so, yeah, we know know that. And there are questions about taxes and visas and all that, which needs to be sorted out. And I imagine if we get back on track now with tourism, that at some point the government is going to make some decisions on digital nomads, and we'll have to see about that, but that can't help but be a good thing. Well, I hope. You can never tell, though, here. And Bali, and what about cryptocurrency and NFTs? Okay, I do not know much about this, but apparently Bali is becoming a hotspot for this. Bali embraces blockchain as crypto NFT market flourish. So if anybody here knows about this and you want to enlighten us, please leave something in the comment section because I don't know about this, and I don't have much money, and I'm not going to put it into anything at this point. I've got enough to live on, and that's about it. Crypto exchange, Toko Crypto, said Bali is the second largest market after Java. The number of Toko Crypto users in Bali skyrocketed to 28,000 people last year from 900 in 2020. And Toko Crypto CEO Pengju Kai said that the high number of users in Bali has prompted the company to set up a crypto community space called T-Hub in the province. He said, "We chose Bali because there are a lot of digital nomads here, and the number of crypto investors has multiplied exponentially. Bali has great potential, and there's already a crypto community of sorts." Well, what is a T-Hub? According to this article, T-Hubs are places for crypto enthusiasts to learn more about the digital asset market and discuss the latest in blockchain technology development. He explained that Toko Crypto would eventually like to turn the T-Hubs into technology hubs for blockchain software development. In these hubs, he said, people could, for instance, learn Solidity, an object-oriented programming language for writing smart contracts to be used for crypto blockchain developers in these projects and startups in our incubator. And Kai went on to say that the company aims to establish T-Hubs in 4 or 5 more cities this year, including Bandung, Surabaya, and Manado. He said, "We're not just identifying Bali as the blockchain zone, so spreading out throughout Indonesia." He said, "We'll be working alongside the government to build a safe blockchain technology sandboxing environment." A regulatory sandbox refers to special permission granted to developers to temporarily deploy relatively untested technology in a confined space, so as not to cause wide-scale disruption or damage, for instance, to financial systems. Oh boy. Well, I know nothing about this. This is, this is far beyond my knowledge base. But according to the Trade Ministry, crypto asset transactions grew 14-fold last year to 859 trillion rupiah from 60 trillion in 2020. Deputy Trade Minister Jerry Sambuaga said that he expected the crypto asset market to double or triple this year as more people become aware of digital assets. And he said Indonesia had 11.2 million crypto investors last year, making a huge increase from 2020 when they had 4 million. According to this, artists can also benefit from utilizing blockchain technology so they can protect their artwork against privacy. The Undersecretary for Industry and Investment at the Tourism and Creative Economy Ministry said cryptocurrency as well as other digital assets could become alternative revenue streams for local artists. Okay. If artists can get more money, great. He said artists used to just sell their art and would not get any additional money if the value of their artworks rose. With blockchain, a whole new business model can be developed so they can enjoy royalties. He said last year, Bali's Tourism and Creative Economy body collaborated with a local startup to create Baliola.com, the first Bali-based NFT marketplace. With NFTs, the original artist will get royalties even if their art has been resold many times. And this is a system that guarantees the owner's intellectual rights, according to the Baliola CEO. This marketplace was established to help Balinese artists export their creations, and he said that NFT marketplaces will become as mainstream in the next decade as social media is now. And what are NFTs? NFTs are units of data stored on digital ledgers such as blockchain, and they can be used to certify the authenticity or ownership of digital artworks and other products. According to its website, Baliola sells NFTs of animation, illustrations, music, paintings, and other types of artwork. Okay, I'll have to check this out. Has anybody bought anything? Anybody know anything about this? Okay, any information would be cool. I'd like to learn about this, even though I'm not going to take part in it, I don't think. As of August last year, Baliola has hosted digital works from 300 artists. And I don't know if you've seen this, but NFTs have gotten this surge in popularity in Indonesia because there was this young man who calls himself Ghazali, and he became an overnight sensation by selling hundreds of selfies online and reportedly made more than 1 billion rupees in the process. He was taking photos of himself every day, I guess for a year, and then he started selling them, and well, people bought them. He's got lots of money now, 1 billion rupees from this. And according to this article, after his rise from fame, many Indonesians begin selling their own photos of food, clothing, and even personal identity cards on the NFT marketplace. Okay, time for an update and a wrap up. So, what are the visa rules right now, as of today? That does not mean they're going to be this way tomorrow or the next day. You never can tell. Right now, you have to have a B211A tourist visa that is with a travel company guarantor, not an individual. What does that mean? It means it has to be a licensed company, and they are going to guarantee your behavior while you're here. And so if you get sick and you go to the hospital and you don't have any money, your insurance is fake, well, they're going to have to pay for it. If you do something bad and you're going to get deported, they're on the hook for that. And so there's not a lot of companies that are willing to do that right now. It has to be a licensed agency at this point. And the requirements right now are still same as usual. You have to have complete COVID vaccination with a certificate of PCR test results, proof of ownership of health insurance, and proof of confirmation of accommodation payment. And you'll have to undergo the 5-day quarantine. At the start of the video, I mentioned there were 5 hotels listed and 6 liveaboards, but that could change. What are the hotels? I don't know. They haven't been released yet as of right now. Are they going to be expensive? If they're Nusa Dua, yeah. What about airlines coming in? At this point, there are 3 airlines that have been registered to fly into Bali, and that is Garuda, which I mentioned before, and that is coming in tomorrow, supposed to come in tomorrow. Singapore Airlines is on the 16th, and talked about that in a different video, and Batik Air is going to be having a route from Bali to Singapore on the 16th. So that is the situation right now. Are people going to come? No way to tell. There's still the visa situation is, well, not really visitor friendly. And quarantine, well, you want to do the quarantine. A lot of people said, I will do the quarantine if I can do it in Bali. Okay, so now the quarantine is 5 and it's in Bali. And so we'll see. On social media, people say, I'm never going to come, blah, blah, blah. And other people saying, hey, it's great, I can come into Bali and do the quarantine in Bali, I'm going to do it. But there's the issue about the visa, and so there's no word if there's going to be a VOA or if visas are going to be simpler and not so expensive. At this point, coming into Bali is going to be an expensive proposition. You're going to have to do the quarantine, and you're going to have to get a visa agency to sponsor you. And so that is not going to be cheap. And the government said they were gradually opening up Bali. Okay, again, as I said. Why are they doing this? They're trying to get the economy rolling here in Bali. Everybody knows how bad it is here. This is the way they're doing it. And the thing to remember here is that the Indonesian government is responsible for 270 million Indonesians. Their health is the first concern. Indonesia has made that very clear from the get-go. As I said before, you can go to the Philippines, you can go to Thailand, you can do domestic travel. Okay, let's get to the updates here. So, Minister of Health warns that the number of Omicron cases could peak as high as 6 times as much as the Delta. So remember at Delta we had about 57,000, and so says it could be 6 times as much based on how the Omicron is worked in other countries. And according to Pak Budi, the Minister of Health, the peak should be sometime around the end of February. And President Jokowi sent a message for Chinese New Year. Hope must remain. Okay, and so President Jokowi is trying to keep people positive and hopeful. And the government modifies PPKM criteria to boost vaccinations, and I'll talk about that on the Sunday video. And here is a really important one. Don't miss this. Facing potato crisis, McDonald's Indonesia removes large French fries from menus. Oh my God. A number of videos ago, I was talking about nightmare situation for a person who had come into Jakarta and got stuck in a hotel and tested positive and wanted to get retested and couldn't and was going back and forth, and it was a nightmare. And a number of those cases have come up over the last few weeks. Well, there was a big story that has been viral the last couple of days about I think a Ukrainian woman and her daughter, and she felt they were getting scammed and the tests were coming up positive, but she wanted another test and they wouldn't. It's a long story. I'm not going to go into it now. There's a lot of information on this, but she finally contacted Pakistan Diego Uno, who got involved in this, and he received this complaint about hotel quarantine mafia, and he got her released. He got her retested. She tested negative, and she's out in Bali. And according to the Indonesian Hotel Association, there's a misunderstanding, and I'll follow this up on Sunday if there is more that develops here. And so this is one of the problems. People have complained and said, look, I get into the hotel and I keep getting tested positive, and I'm not positive. I'm sure I'm not positive. So that is an issue. And the Bali hotel list, I posted that a long time ago, and I'm posting it again. It is not necessarily active. It may be, the government said, 5. That could be changed. Of course, everything is open to change. And so those are the updates, and let's do the wrap-up. So what is the wrap-up? Okay, so Bali is open again, and you can think whatever you like about it, but that's what the government says. Apparently the government is trying to, despite the surge in cases, get Bali rolling again. Is that going to work? I don't know. There's a lot of things going against it. The visa issue is a big one, quarantines, and flights. How many flights are there going to be? We know Singapore. Okay, so you'll be able to fly in direct to Bali, and you can do a quarantine here. Whether that's going to work or not, I don't know. Could it be canceled? Yes. It's hard to tell exactly what's going on. But my personal opinion is that anything that gets us going and gives people here some hope of international tourists showing up here is a good thing if it happens. Now, if it all gets canceled again, boy, it's going to be devastating for a lot of people who are looking forward to getting back to work, and I'm talking about my kids too. If you found this useful, helpful, informative, amusing, not irritating, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. If you're planning on coming to Bali and coming in through Singapore Airlines, any information on that would be great. And of course, there's always the Jetstar and what's happening with Jetstar. So I hope if you want to get here, you make it here. If something big happens, I will do a real quick update here. And so if you subscribe, you'll find out about that. That's it. Thanks for viewing. Be kind to someone today. Stay safe, and I will see you on Sunday.